Introduction. The rise of the Maratha Empire takes place at a very interesting juncture of Indian history. On one hand, we have a mighty Mughal empire in the northern and on the other hand parts of southern India under various powerful ruling dynasties. The rise of Maratha power is the story of strong aspirations, military tactics, diplomacy and courage of its striking rulers and administrators like Shivaji, Bajirao, Tarabai, etc. The guerrilla warfare techniques, the difficult terrains of the Deccan and the unconventional techniques applied by them were the main reasons of their recognition as a strong power despite facing strong enemies like Mughals, Nizams etc. We have a lot of sources in the history of the Marathas which helps us understand the Maratha period. To construct a good history of any period or empire, it is good for historians to have as many sources as possible so that corroboration becomes easier. The more the corroborations between sources, the closer we reach to saying something substantial about the past. There are a number of sources in various languages which can tell us about the Maratha history. These range from sources of Marathi language like the Bhakhars, Shakhavalis and administrative records of the Marathas. Some texts in Hindi and Sanskrit also help us understand more about the past of the Marathas. The Maratha Empire coincided with the advance of other foreign travelers towards India. There are sources in foreign languages like French, Dutch, Portuguese, and English which supplement our information about the Maratha period. In this unit, we will discuss the history of the Maratha Empire through the various sources that are available. It will also focus on the rise of the Maratha Empire and the lives of Shahaji Raje, Rajmata Jijabai and Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. मराठा साम्राज्य का उदय भारतीय इतिहास के एक बहुत ही दिलचस्प मोड़ पर होता है। एक ओर, हमारे पास उत्तर में एक शक्तिशाली मुगल साम्राज्य है और दूसरी ओर दक्षिण भारत के कुछ हिस्सों में विभिन्न शक्तिशाली शासक राजवंशों के अधीन है। मराठा शक्ति का उदय शिवाजी, बाजीराव, ताराबाई आदि जैसे इसके हड़ताली शासकों और प्रशासकों की मजबूत आकांक्षाओं, सैन्य रणनीति, कूटनीति और साहस की कहानी है। गुरिल्ला युद्ध तकनीक, दक्कन के कठिन इलाके और अपरंपरागत तकनीकों द्वारा लागू मुगलों, निजामों आदि जैसे मजबूत दुश्मनों का सामना करने के बावजूद एक मजबूत शक्ति के रूप में उनकी पहचान के मुख्य कारण थे। हमारे पास मराठों के इतिहास में बहुत सारे स्रोत हैं जो हमें मराठा काल को समझने में मदद करते हैं। किसी भी काल या साम्राज्य के अच्छे इतिहास की रचना करने के लिए इतिहासकारों के लिए यह अच्छा है कि उनके पास अधिक से अधिक स्रोत हों ताकि पुष्टि करना आसान हो जाए। स्रोतों के बीच जितनी अधिक पुष्टि होती है, हम अतीत के बारे में कुछ महत्वपूर्ण कहने के करीब पहुंच जाते हैं। विभिन्न भाषाओं में कई स्रोत हैं जो हमें मराठा इतिहास के बारे में बता सकते हैं। ये मराठी भाषा के स्रोतों जैसे बखर, शाखावली और मराठों के प्रशासनिक रिकॉर्ड से लेकर हैं। हिंदी और संस्कृत के कुछ ग्रंथ हमें मराठों के अतीत के बारे में और अधिक समझने में मदद करते हैं। मराठा साम्राज्य भारत की ओर अन्य विदेशी यात्रियों की प्रगति के साथ मेल खाता था। फ्रेंच, डच, पुर्तगाली और अंग्रेजी जैसी विदेशी भाषाओं में स्रोत हैं जो मराठा काल के बारे में हमारी जानकारी के पूरक हैं। इस इकाई में, हम उपलब्ध विभिन्न स्रोतों के माध्यम से मराठा साम्राज्य के इतिहास पर चर्चा करेंगे। यह मराठा साम्राज्य के उदय और शाहजी राजे, राजमाता जीजाबाई और छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज के जीवन पर भी ध्यान केंद्रित करेगा। Literary sources. The history of the marathon can be stated through sources like Bhakhar's, Tate Pen Ahoris which are available in Marathi language. We also have a lot of sources in the languages by foreign travelers and sources written by foreign invader like THCH Portuguese, French and English. The rise and existence of the Maratha Empire. What very interesting juncture in the Indian history when on one hand, there was the Mughal Empire and on the other hand, there was entry of many foreign entities expand their trade in India. There is plenty of material available in various languages. Learn and understand about the Maratha history. In this section, we shall look at the Marathi sources as well as sources of other foreign languages like Dutch, English and Portuguese in order to understand the Maratha history. Historians like Kashinath Sen have worked immensely hard in order to preserve sanads, bakhars and letters and tahar state papers in journals. 1.2.1 Local sources, Marathi, Sanskrit, and Hindi. In this section, you will learn about local sources on the Maratha Empire. Marathi sources. Bakhars. Bakhars are a record of the happening in the contemporary period. It is also seen as an important source to find out about the history of eminent people in the Maratha Empire. There have been debates about accepting Bakhars as a reliable source of history, as Bakhars were usually ordered to be written for the rich and affluent people, so they are thought to be eulogies of eminent personalities in Maratha history. Despite being about a specific group, the Bakhars are still valuable sources of history which have been effectively and impartially studied by historians. The Bakhars are written in Modi script of the Marathi language. The following are a list of Bakhars given which are used to study history of the Marathas. Rajgath Barkhar. This is the prime and most important source of Maratha history. It was written by Krishnana Sabasad, a minister of Chhatrapat Rajaram at Jinji in 1694. Krishnji Anant Sabhasad has described the events about Shivaji in detail. The position of Maloji, the grandfather of Shiva. Circumstances during the time of birth of Shivaji, Shivaji's initial campaigns, the Afzal Khan episode, Shasta Khan's attack on Pune, Diler Khan and siege of Purandar, and Shivaji's visit to Agra. There are various references of events during early years of Shivaji. The Bhakhar also mentions some statements which cannot be considered completely historical as they only showcase the religious and metaphysical beliefs of the writer or section of people. Yet, Bhakhars are a good source of the Maratha times. Chittani's Bhakhar. This Bhakhar was ordered by Chhatrapati Shahu to be written by Malharrao Ramrao Chittanis, 125 years after the death of Shivaji. The writer wrote about the origins and genealogy of the Bhonsle family. He discussed about Shivaji's campaigns and his coronation in 1674. The events mentioned in this Bhakhar are not in a chronologically correct manner, but this is also used to reconstruct history of the given time period. Chitragupt Bhakhar. Chhatrapati Sambhaji of Kolhapur asked Chitragupt to write a Bhakhar during the period of 1760 and 1770. This is like Sabhasad Bhakhar and the writer has elaborated on the same. The additional information which is important for reconstruction of history given in this Bhakhar is about the functions of the secretariat officers in the Maratha administration. Chivdik Vijay Bhakhar. This is a Bhakhar written by the son of Balaji Avaji, Khando Ballal in 1718. This Bhakhar is one of the most voluminous Bhakhars. It provides a chronology of the Bhonsle family which has proved to be inconsistent. It does not mention anything about the Shivaji administration. The writer has explained the origins of the Bhonsle family and traced their roots from Mewar, Rajasthan. The important campaigns of Shivaji in Javali, Rajapur and with Shasta Khan has been mentioned in his Bhakhar. The Bhakhar has a lot of Sanskrit words and is ornamental in terms of literature, but the events mentioned therein about Tanaji Malusale's visit to Hyderabad and Raja Jaising's death at Jaipur in 1667 seem to be inconsistent with actual events. Shedgaonkar Bhakhar, more than one writers have written this Bhakhar, it is consistent about the events of the royal period. Sajjan Singh is mentioned as the ancestor of Shivaji in this Bhakhar. It also mentions the details of Shivaji's genealogy with Chhatrapati Pratap Singh Bhosle of Satara. This Bhakhar is a historically very important Bhakhar of Shivaji. Chandrarav More Bhakhar, this Bhakhar is a well-known one in terms of reconstruction of history in the Maratha period. This Bhakhar gives information about the Battle of Rakshastagadi, about the kingdoms of Ahmednagar and Bijapur. It also explains the process of alignment of Watan of Javali in the title of Chandrarav Motu Adil Shah. Sasti Bhakhar, this Bhakhar was written about Chimaji Appa. It discusses his campaign in North Konkan. Chimaji Appa was Peshwa Baji Rao's brother and he helped him conquer North Konkan. Chimaji Appa's attack of Sashtia. Sulset in 1738 and Vasai in 1739 brought these areas under the control of the Marathas. This Bhakhar explains in detail about the conquest of these places by Chimaji Appa and the capture of the Vasai fort. It talks about the manner in which Gangaji Naik, the lieutenant of Chimaji, assisted him in his conquests. This Bhakhar deals with the way Chimaji attacked the above places, the fall of Vasai fort etc. The Peshwa Bhakhar, Srinivas Daji, a close associate of the Peshwa family, asked Krishanji Sohoni to make a note of all the important events in the life of Peshwa till the decline of the Marathas in 1818. Krishanji Sohoni was very cautious about writing the history of the Maratha family. He was not impartial enough for historians to learn about the truth of the past, but by corroborating it with various sources, it would definitely be useful to tell some truth about the Maratha period. Shahu Bhakhar, this Bhakhar is written by Gobind Khanderav Chittanis, who was a friend of the Peshwa family. The Bhakhar deals with the time that Shahu spent in the Mughal court as a prisoner with his mother. The plight of his being imprisoned from an early age has been mentioned in the Bhakhar. Bhausahab Bhakhar, it is said to be written at the order of Mahatji Shinde. After the Third Battle of Panipat, which negatively affected the Maratha kingdom, the information provided therein cannot be said to be historically reliable, but it definitely gives us a good idea in the socio-economic condition of the period. There is another Bhakhar with the name of Panipat Bhakhar, which is said to be ordered by Gopikabai Peshwa, the wife of Nana Saheb Peshwa. It was written by an employee of the Peshwa family, Raghunath Yadav. The contents are written with a certain bias towards the Marathas, but it can undoubtedly supply some insight into the condition in the post-Panipat Maratha kingdom. The Shahanav Kulmi Bhakhar, the name of the writer of this Bhakhar is not clear. It is part of the official records of Anno Dato, who was the Secretary Sachiv of Shivaji. He was the officer who under Shivaji conducted the revenue survey of the Konkan region. It deals with many political events concerning the Marathas. It is an important source of Maratha history. Rajgath Barkhar, this Bhakhar was translated by Sir Scott Waring in English in 1811. It deals with several events of the Peshwa period, though Justice Telling has mentioned his doubts about the accuracy of the English translation. This Bhakhar is an important source of history of the Marathas and was found at Ray. Tanjore Bhakhar, the writer of this Bhakhar is not known. This is carved on the walls of the Brihadishwara temple of Tanjore. This Bhakhar was ordered by Raja Sarfoji Bhonsle of Tanjore. We, K. Rajwat and G. S. Sardesai have spoken in favor of this Bhakhar. It was published in the Marathi periodical Prabhat. In the above section, we read briefly about the various Bhakhars, which are one of the very important sources in the history of Marathas. As you know, Bhakhars are written in Modi script of Marathi language, and as we saw above, most of the Bhakhars are written by people close to the ruling family, and hence it is biased towards the ruling families and various events in the Maratha history. These biases towards the patrons make it difficult for historians to price out history from the texts. Nevertheless, it has been used by historians with caution and corroboration with other sources to know about the past.